let's kick it off because we have got a lot to talk about today. So thank you everyone for joining our webinar for marketing strategies to maximize ROI. Like I said, we are going to talk everything e-commerce, acquisition, conversion, retention, anything that you guys can do to get a better return on your investment and drive more revenue for your brand today. I'm joined by an amazing panel of speakers. But before we do that, I'll let everyone take a chance to introduce themselves. So I'll start. I'm Lindsay Kalinsky. I am the Senior Marketing Lead here at Okendo. And then Nish, let's start with you.
Hey guys, my name is Nish. I'm one of the co-founders of a brand called Arrae. Arrae is in the health and supplement space. We basically do 100% natural supplements that work in under an hour, specifically for women. We started the company about 3 years ago. I co-founded the company with my wife, and we are currently based in California, but I'm really excited to talk to everyone today.
Great. And Mia.
Beautiful. Hello, everyone. My name is Mia Bobak. I'm the head of tech partnerships here at Triple Whale. I'm based in sunny Orlando, Florida. For those of y'all who aren't familiar with Triple Whale, we're an e-commerce data platform that lets you easily manage and automate your analytics, attribution, customer data, and much more for your Shopify store. So excited to be chatting with y'all today and sharing the stage with so many exceptional people in this industry.
Fantastic. And Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Blissick. I'm the head of agency partnerships at retention.com, which is an identity resolution solution to help you identify anonymous visitors on your website. Really excited to be here, working with some great friends, some familiar faces and some new ones. So really excited for today's panel.
Awesome. And then last but not least, my wonderful colleague, Gab.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gab. I am based in New York, and I am also from Okendo. For those who may not be familiar, Okendo is a customer marketing platform. So right now we power reviews, ratings, surveys for some of your favorite fastest growing Shopify brands.
Fantastic. So with that said, let's kick it off. So, as I mentioned, we're here today to talk marketing strategies to increase your ROI. So to really set the stage, let's talk about how have D2C marketing strategies changed in the last few years? And Gab, I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, I think traditional advertising has changed, right? Over the past couple of years, digital marketing has really become about meeting your customers where they are, right? A recent McKinsey study said that more than 75% of consumers are expecting personalization as that default standard of engagement. So not only is personalization key, but customers are also more wary, right? There is a lot of competition, so social proof, word of mouth, and brand advocacy, I find it's becoming much more important than that was in the past.
Great. And Mia, what do you think on that topic?
Yeah, so I think across the board, really everything has changed in D2C to at least some degree, like the way that customers are interacting with brands, the way brands are acquiring and retaining customers. Advertising is completely different, between customer expectations rising, platforms changing, it's much more expensive to acquire customers now more than ever. So there's been some really big shifts in the industry that have completely changed the way that brands are growing and scaling. And Gab, to echo your point, personalization and providing that exceptional customer experience is so incredibly important. I think in order to really provide that experience, you need to know who your customers actually are. And that's where the necessity of having easy to understand data comes in, because again, having that data about your customers is so important in order to actually be able to provide that personalized experience.
Awesome. I think you're so spot on. And I know we're going to get a lot more into that data piece later on in the conversation. And then there's from the brand perspective, what's your take on how things have changed for you in the last few years?
So I feel like one of the things we would keep seeing is kind of just when we would be interacting with brands, the brands would be seen as an entity or a brand. And I think that something that has worked really well for some of these newer age brands is kind of the customers understanding the people behind the brand and really understanding who it is that they're buying from. And so instead of being okay, this is a brand, and then I'm going to make this all about the persona of the brand, it is literally about people are buying from Nish and Sif's my wife. And so they know exactly who they're buying from. So for example, when we sometimes will go to, events and whatnot, where we have our products there, customers will come up to us like, oh my God, you're the person in the emails. This is so cool. Like, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to meet you. And so just really, I think it's really important that brands figure out what they want to be. And for us, it's really important to be approachable. And I think a lot of brands want to be approachable in this day and age. So just really being approachable and then actually executing on that has been really important, because then people trust who they're buying from. You're not just like a logo with really good design around it. So that's really important. And I think that shift is super clear and it's working really well for a lot of brands that have been scaling tremendously recently, because that actually helps you build community in that sense, right? Because people are always talking about building community a lot. So just being really approachable and having people and faces behind the brand is really important. And the second thing is, I think that D2C brands are not really just D2C anymore. I think that they're trying to figure out how to change the way that they are selling to people, by whether it's being online, being in person, being on Amazon, so whatever that might be. So just having different channels to sell from, so that it is de-risking that one channel is really important. So I don't think that we're like D2C companies are primarily direct to customer. I think, yes, we're trying to sell to the customer, but not necessarily only online. And so thinking about that way, I feel like has changed quite a bit recently, but yeah.
I love that, because we talk about personalization so much, but there's a person aspect to that as well in building that. So I love that idea. And I do agree with you. I think that's something we've been seeing from a lot more founders, as well as putting themselves out there. And then Megan, what are the things that, you've seen change in the industry in the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. Also just kind of going off what you said, Nish, that's not just D2C that's seeing that like relationship that people want to have with the brands and places they're buying. Like retention.com, we are SaaS B2B, but we still have that founder relationship within our space as well. Like our co-founder, Adam, puts out a lot of content, really puts a face to our brand, because it's a crowded marketplace, and that extends to D2C as well. Like the product can be fantastic, but if people don't know why you're doing it and what you're doing it for, it can be challenging to retain customers. They'll go to the next cheap thing, the next 20% off your first order. They'll bounce around because customers are also being pressed. And that's something that's really different. Money was free for like the last decade. We've been on a really good economic uptick, and then everything kind of got disrupted. So the way that we're reaching customers is more personal, in both they want to know that they're being spoken to directly, and they want to know who is actually speaking to them on both ends of that, and not being able to track our customers nearly as well. I used to sell meta ads, and I could very much hone in on someone specifically, and all these changes that, putting privacy at the forefront is very important, but also makes it hard when your customer wants you to know them, but doesn't want to share anything about who they are. So kind of navigating in between those two spaces, like we've all said, I think diversifying those channels and platforms, and then understanding how long the consumer journey is now, because it is harder to just make impulse purchases. The purse strings are tighter. And last year it took about 4 touch points. Completely stealing this statistic. I heard this a few weeks ago and it was so interesting, but it took 4 touch points to drive to a conversion. Now it's taking about 7. And that's just over a year. So we really have to have very specific ways to reach our customers, make them feel personally known and seen, and then also hit them in all the different places and the different considerations that they're making when they're actually going to go make a purchase.
And to quickly just jump right in and go off of that point, something that I've noticed that I do also, like when I go to Whole Foods or Sephora, like there are so many brands that fight for shelf space, right? So I don't really know what's the difference between this coconut water from this one. So I find that like I'll go online and I'll look at reviews, I'll pull up their TikTok, I'll pull up their social media, like what are these customers who buy this brand? What are they doing? How do they look? Do they seem to eat like me? Do they wear makeup like me? And kind of like aligning my purchasing decisions based on what they're showing. So I think there's like a really interesting mix to having like a social proof, even if you are retail heavy, like you still need to have like an online presence regardless of where you're sold.
Absolutely.
100%. I think, like you said, cross-channel, the amount of times you see something in store, you go online, then you buy it in store. We're not, as customers, just doing one area anymore. So with that, we talked a little bit about how things have changed. Let's flip it now to kind of talking about what's actually working right now. So what are the marketing strategies that you're seeing working in 2023 for brands? And Nish, we'll start with you on this one.
So for me, for us recently, I'm going to bring this up because it's been working really well for us more recently, and it's been a long-standing practice of ours, and it's continuing to show results. So the influencer, affiliate, and podcast strategy is working very, very well. And what's really, I think, important about that one is just the combination of all of them, because they actually work better when you're hitting them all. And I think it's just funny you brought this up, but you're just saying, Megan, that someone needs to go and hear about the brand 7 times before they buy it. And so what's really interesting is people will talk about, oh, like my influence strategy is working really well, or my ads are working really well. But then when you start focusing and having individual strategies for all of them, specifically like our influencer affiliate strategy, then it starts performing across the board at an even better level. And so initially what was funny is we started off with some podcasts, and we used to spend quite a decent amount on podcasts. And what we'd see is that like they would convert sometimes, but they wouldn't convert sometimes. And so we paused on podcasts altogether. And then as our influencer and affiliate strategies grew, and the number of influencers we were working with grew, the number of affiliates we had grew, we brought podcasts on again, and the literal same podcast started converting way better. And so I think that's just really interesting, because looking at this holistically is super important. And there's now a direct correlation between the influencer, affiliate, podcast, ads, Amazon, like all of those things are just working better when they're all played kind of together. And what's really cool is when we go and kind of dissect the data, we now look at all of those channels together as like a holistic return on investment, as opposed to channel investment. And then you're really able to make better decisions as to where to invest your money, because you can kind of tell that it's having a halo effect essentially. So I think that, yeah, just that combination has been really, really good.
That makes so much sense, Nish, because, especially thinking of ourselves as customers, I think, Lindsay, you briefly said it a minute ago, there's no Amazon customer. Everyone shops on Amazon and on direct site and in store and sees a billboard or a digital ad while they're watching a show. Like that's that customer persona. And we need to, be able to sit across all of these different spaces. And I'm actually just going to plug Mia, because that's what Triple Whale does very well, is actually show where all of those different contributions are and what those different changes are. But if we're also looking at like an email marketing strategy, for example, having a way to push that customer journey down the funnel and to warm someone up to your brand, like even in a singular channel, there should be brand awareness campaigns, there should be actual product campaigns, there should be purchase campaigns. So with retention.com, we mainly work with customers doing email marketing. So we've been able to see the email flows that work really well. And the ones that tell a really good story, that start off as like a hello, and then they get all the way down to the actual consideration why you should buy, that warming up to the brand. And then of course, sprinkling in personalization. Those are the ones that perform so much better than like, hello and welcome to our website. Here's 20% off if you buy something. Like, that's great, but it doesn't tell who your brand is and who you are. So the ones that really take the time to make that story and share that story with the customer, they're the ones that we ultimately see doing really, really well when it comes to actually converting.
I love that. And again, from experience, I'll say I'm that customer that like I see something on Instagram and I'm like, yeah. Then I see it on TikTok and I'm like, oh my God, this looks like me, but am I ready yet? And then I see it again. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy it, because, you're like trying not to be impulsive, but eventually it gets to you if you're interested in it. So pivoting a little, Gab, what are your thoughts in terms of like, what are you seeing working in 2023?
I think over the past couple of years, we've seen like privacy changes have been enacted. So at this point, it's like, it's a lot harder to get more information about your customers, right? Like a couple years ago, you used to just be able to buy ads and really understand exactly who they're going to and serve that specific person, but it's not that clear anymore. So I think there's been like a bigger emphasis on like retaining the current customers that you have, and being able to like understand exactly what works and what doesn't, right? Like negative feedback just gives you an opportunity to turn that around into a positive experience. And positive feedback or constructive feedback is just good so that you can keep doing what you're doing. So I think people have been, or brands have been really looking to really hone in and understand exactly what's wanted, what's not wanted, who the audiences are, so that way they could better serve their audiences.
Great. And yeah, completely agree. I mean, it's, again, without being able to get the data from third parties, asking customers directly like what they care about and what they're going to do. Again, that just, if it's not necessarily personalization, which you can get from that, but you can also improve your customer experience from that information, really finding out from them. And then Mia, what's your take? What are you seeing working on the triple whale side?
Yeah, so I'm also very passionate about retention and personalization, like I mentioned earlier. And one of those pieces of retention that I'm sure we've all been hearing all about community. And Nish, you said it best, like having a face to that community or to your brand is so important, because now people actually have someone to connect with. It's not just this like overarching brand. It's, oh, I'm creating a connection with Nish and his family, and this is what they built, and this is what they're doing, and this is how I can be involved with it. And I think that aspect of a brand, and when you're looking towards retention, is so important, right? Like community is not just, you know, the occasional newsletter or an inactive Facebook group. It's so much more than that. It's about how your customers feel when they hear or see you and your brand, how connected they feel with your brand. One example of a brand that I think does this really well is Kin Apparel. They're always collabing with their customers to figure out what new products should be released. Philomena is the co-founder and CEO. So she has like a true face to that brand. She's creating a connection with her customers. And so that's just like one example. And there's so many out there. Arrae, for example, like there's so many brands out there doing this that I think are doing it really well and creating the most genuine connections with their brands and have really cracked the code on like what good community means and what it looks like.
I think, Mia, just to add on to what you're saying a little bit, is not only kind of just us, the founders, is also the actual entire team. So
Right.
like our people in the community are also so excited to know who they're speaking to when they reach out to customer support, or kind of like who they're speaking to when it comes to the marketing kind of play that we just did, or some sort of an event that we just did, that they really, really want to know the entire team as well. So putting the entire kind of company out there when it comes to the team and also the people, that also really, really helps building that personalization community, exactly like you talked about.
Yeah, 1,000%. And like also to bounce off of that, another example is like Olipop. Like when they're coming out with new product releases, they do this with SMS, with Postscript. When they're sending out a new SMS to customers, they're not just saying, oh, here's the sale that's going on, click this link to learn more. They're attaching pictures and videos. They're saying, hey, this is X, Y, and Z, or Linda from Olipop with a picture of like a little selfie or a TikTok. And they're saying, this is the new product that we're coming out with, vote for which one you want to see next. Like it's very interactive. They definitely have cracked that like 2-way SMS code, and to really, again, like increase their ROI for their SMS specifically. Like it all of those things play in part to the community that you're building. Again, it's not just the founders, it's definitely the entire team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think diving into that like a little bit more specifically, if we go into new customer acquisition, right? It is costing so much more to acquire a customer. We know the cost of acquisition is just exponentially increased in the last few years. So in terms of ROI and making sure that, like, again, what is going to work for acquisition to ensure that you're getting the most out of your marketing dollars. So with that, Nish, we'll start with you. What are some tips that you have to share with other brands who are looking to grow their customer base in an effective and cost-effective way?
So I'll give you an example of something you've been doing. So we've been playing around a lot with kind of merchandising our existing products in different ways to essentially make the offers a lot more attractive or interesting, or just add more to your existing lineup. I think that because that way we don't have to come up with new products all the time, or we don't have to look for kind of new channels to help improve conversion and whatnot. And so recently we kind of played around with this idea of bedazzling certain things. And so we actually we bedazzled our entire jars.
I love
And
that.
yeah, it was, and people went absolutely nuts for this. Like, it was a really successful kind of acquisition play. It was a really successful retention play as well. And we built out a whole strategy around this where it wasn't about just bedazzling. Like, we kind of did a thing where, okay, along with it came certain perks if you found this as one of your shipments. And we kind of gave this to our most loyal customers, and also new customers in anticipation of them becoming loyal customers. And so I think it's really interesting because this was something where, we did not have to do anything very traditional. It was very it was kind of out of left field, but it was very aligned with what the customer would be excited about. Like, like to see you, Mia, like, oh my God, I love this. It's so cool. Like, a lot of customers were really, really excited about this. And so it just added a different layer of merchandising to an already existing product. So thinking in that way was really helpful for us, and we'll continue doing stuff for this. But yeah.
I love that. That's just such a simple way. Like you said, like just adding a little pizzazz to what you're already doing makes it feel a little bit more like interesting and exciting to someone who might not have purchased before, that you're already reaching out to and like is in your network, but you're giving this this additional, perk and exclusivity to go from there. I love that. And then Gab, what are you kind of seeing on the acquisition side?
Yeah, I mean, exactly just that, like to take the really cool bedazzled products, like social proof is absolutely an incredible driver of increased ROI and increased order value as well, right? Like, I now can get 4 bedazzled products. That's really fun. I didn't need 4, maybe I only needed 2, right? But with that social proof, again, like, you're able to find people who align with what you have, right? Like, somebody who has a bedazzled vitamin kit or health-based product, like, that's cool. That's something that I would want to use. That's something that my friends would also want to use. But with that social proof, I think being able to also integrate that into like ads, and especially like your Google ads, with Google seller ratings specifically, and I thought this was absolutely insane, but showing Google seller ratings, like your store rating itself, can increase your click-through rate by up to 10%. And that's pretty big. It's a simple thing to do. You effectively just enable that within whatever platform you're using. And then you're able to see just like a pretty natural lift by using that social proof and placing it around to like that introductory part of the buying journey. So that way, in those first couple touches, it's more likely that somebody will end up converting.
Yeah, I think like the pattern we're seeing here is, how can you use resources that you already have available to you, without doing anything major, but use it towards acquisition. So like you said, you're already getting social proof. If you're already getting reviews, use that to acquire new customers. Don't need to like do anything more. Put that copy from the review in an ad, Google seller ratings, all of those things. All of that's a really impactful way to not have to like recreate the wheel. And then Megan, from your side, what's your thoughts on, an acquisition tactic that you'd recommend to brands?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think you all just kind of hit on exactly the point here is like, we have finite resources. Everyone has a tech stack of different tools and products that they find necessary. But like, the more that you can integrate those across these different channels and utilize that, the next step of social proof is like UGC. Right? Like, someone's so excited and they went and they wrote a review. So you put that review in a couple of places already. That's already maximizing that use. But you can also reach out to those customers and say like, hey, record a quick video for us. We'd love to like send you another product. And you can really utilize those like cross conversational platforms to further promote your product via the people that are the most excited about it. And then especially in like the email marketing strategies, like once you acquire an email address of someone, like, of course, make sure your content's relevant, but like that is a direct line of communication to that customer. So if you're sending them like, here's what people are saying about Arrae, and you're taking all this content and you're creating a really targeted messaging flow. If you're talking about like specific products where they landed on that PDP and then bounced, and then you're sending them a cadence that's focused on that, like this is where combining data and strategy is really, really crucial right now. Because if you're not using any of the tools that you have to their full capability, there's just money being left on the table.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good transition to our conversation on conversion, right? So you've got their email, you've got them to your site. How do you make sure that every single person that gets to your site, obviously it's not going to be every single one, but the maximum amount of people, when you've put all this acquisition effort, is actually going to convert? So Mia, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I think this is really where the importance of segmentation comes into play, right? Segmenting both your, existing customers, but also your prospects as well. So there's several different tools that you can do for this. Of course, Triple Whale being one of them, where you can create, customer segments based on actions that they take or don't take, customer attributes, ads that they click, order tags, etc. And then based on those actions or attributes, you should then target them with relevant and personalized ads so that you can really maximize and retain those customers. So you're giving a personalized experience throughout the entire customer lifecycle. I think segmentation is so important to make sure that you're maximizing every single conversion.
Right. And then Gab, what's your thoughts on conversion?
Sorry, myself. I think you should always be asking your customers for feedback, right? And even not necessarily a customer, right? If somebody's abandoning their cart, have a pop-up that says, "Hey, why are you leaving? Where are you going? How did you hear about us? How long did you know about us until you made a purchase?" Right? There are ways that you can ask very pointed questions, and people are happy to give feedback, and especially if you can incentivize that feedback with like a coupon or something similar, like you'll see those generation rates come up higher, and you'll be able to uncover things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily have found. But I would say that if you're able to ask your customers where they come from or some more information about them, then you'll have an indicator of what's working or what's not, right? Maybe podcasts aren't working right now, so we'll take a pause, but in a couple of weeks, when you have a more robust strategy and you're looking at a couple other things, then podcast might be a really successful channel, but you only know that if you're asking these questions and then you're actioning on the data. That's an important one too.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, especially because like you said, there's so many offline channels you can't measure, like events, podcasts, influencers. Like, yes, if they use your code, but if they heard about you from the influencer first, you're not going to know if that's working unless like they directly tell you. So understanding, where they heard about you and then following up appropriately is so important. And then Megan, sorry to cut you off. What's your tips on conversion there as well?
What you were saying, Gab, and then also to kind of mix in an answer to the question in the chat as well. I think this is such a critical part for not just early stage companies, but especially for early stage companies, is doing these two pieces. I think like it's great that we're all here, but Mia and Gab can really kind of speak to both of these, the soliciting feedback and tracking everything. If you don't know what your top sellers are, your top performers, if you don't know what people like about your products, if they're going to come back and purchase it again, like that's the really, really critical information early stage, which can tell you to drop a product line, or it can tell you to double down on inventory on one of those. That's like really understanding what's actually happening at that very granular level. Where are people coming into your brand? What's building that affinity? Do they actually like the product once they purchase it? Are they going to purchase again? Are they going to tell their people about it? What problems did they have? What things excited them? And then knowing like where there's drop-off points as well. Like, is that favorite item out of stock? And do you have on that page, like email me when that's back in stock? Because that's a great way to build an organic list in a really, really engaging fashion. Like, I really want this item. And then you can send them a message and just tell them it's back in stock. If they don't engage, you can say it's back in stock. Here's 10% off to buy now. Really finding ways to reach out and get as much information from your customers as early on as possible. Nish, have you done or taken any of these strategies when you were scaling up? Anything that you can provide some insights to now that you're big and bedazzled?
Yeah. Yes, I think that we did exactly what you're talking about, but on every single major level. So what I mean with that is essentially you're saying that we need a high level of fidelity and also insight into data. And you gave a specific example, and I'm saying that you need that on every layer of the business. So for example, you gave an example of, okay, so we must do this on our products and the product SKU and the product mix, and kind of like we're double down on inventory. Now we also did this on what about how each product is actually performing. So when you launch a product, what is the retention rate of the product, not of your company as a whole, but of your brand on a product level? What is the opt-in rate for product X versus product Y? And so really understanding what products you can use to sell on the front end versus not, and how are these products performing in terms of retention individually, and how does that kind of ask you the question of, well, what should I try to sell more on the front end? What should I try to sell more on the back end as a cross-sell upsell? So I think those strategies are really, really important. And then we also did that on, let's say, our ad strategy. So we took that level of data insights and put it into our ads, our events, our influencers. So we're just trying to track down the very key important questions on every single one of the layers. And even also for example, our website, we're also looking at, okay, where are people landing on the website? Which pages are they landing on? What does the conversion look like? How can we run split tests on every single page to make sure we increase the conversion? And what are the customers on Facebook look like as opposed to Google, as opposed to one that comes from an Amazon basis, let's say. So we really are trying to do exactly what you're saying, but on every single part of the company. And that is what really allows us to make decisions with confidence. But having that insight into the data is definitely super important.
Absolutely. And with that, our next question, this is again kind of perfect. We talked about conversion, acquisition, but with so many channels in the marketing mix, we talked about like knowing, the conversion side, like you said, Nish, on each specific page, but how are we able to better tell what channels are working and then what channels are not working? So Mia, I'll let you kick this one off at Triple Up.
Yeah, for sure. So again, a variety of different tools that you can use. And of course, there's in-platform metrics if new tools aren't in your budget. Based on our own benchmark data that we're seeing, and this is based on our customer set, Facebook and Google are still very much so the top two channels to be spending on. TikTok and Snapchat are the two lowest channels that we're seeing, Snapchat being the worst of the two. However, I wouldn't say to deprioritize TikTok, especially if your brand is in the health and beauty space, clothing and fashion accessories. We're seeing a decent amount of success from TikTok for those verticals. So something to keep in mind as we prep for holiday and when you're planning, where you're planning to put your marketing dollars, but that's what we're seeing right now as far as benchmarking goes.
That's so helpful.
Yeah. And then, Nish, I mean, you kind of talked about it a little bit. How are you able to tell? How is Arrae able to track what channels are working?
I mean, honestly, Triple Wheel has been a really, really important kind of piece of the puzzle for us. We use Triple Wheel all the time for this type of tracking. We also use our own kind of set of data as well. So what we do is that we pull. So for example, Triple Wheel gives us all the information on our ad conversion, also on like some of our page conversion and whatnot. So that's been really helpful. But we always actually set up a different report to kind of compare that to in-platform metrics, and also to compare that with Google Analytics metrics. So we'll pull in all three pieces of data, we'll put it on an Excel sheet, and it does this automatically, by the way. So for anyone who's curious how we do that, we use BigQuery, and we just pull raw data, and we use BigQuery to actually query those raw data to get that information. And then it literally just puts it into a spreadsheet automatically every single day. And so what's really cool about that is that we're able to kind of compare how all of these attribution tools are telling us how we're doing. And we're able to then make decisions, because then the interesting part is when there is a discrepancy where, let's say Triple Wheel is all of a sudden saying that we're doing worse than Facebook is saying. Well, why would that be? And it's on a very specific campaign. And it actually allows you to go in and, really understand what could be right there. And then what you can do is you can start making decisions, 1 week based off of, let's say, Triple Wheel. Another week, you could make the decisions off of your raw data that you're gathering. And then it allows you to build confidence with what exactly the right decision is, because then you can, over time, you really get to iterate and understand what the best platform is. But so I think just having those attribution platforms is really helpful, but also as you grow, really understanding the differences between the platforms, because attribution is so difficult today, is a really important piece. It just gives you a lot of confidence with what you're kind of working on.
Yeah, I love that example that you shared, Nish, because I think, and I'm sure a lot of brands can agree, the problem isn't necessarily having the data, because there's data everywhere. The problem is understanding that data and what to actually do with it. So I love that example that you shared of comparing all of the different data sets and then making decisions based off of that, maybe 1 week doing this, maybe 1 week doing that, and then comparing that data and then building out a plan from there. So I think that's one of the best approaches that you can take.
I love that. I mean, as someone on the marketing side, attribution is a pain. So
yes, yes, it is.
Will definitely help, but being able to put it all together, like you said, understanding where the discrepancies are. I mean, we just went through that, with some of our tracking as well. So it's important to have that all in one place and be able to know, like, where do I need to dig deeper? And sometimes there's a problem. Sometimes it's just they measure differently, but for you to be able to look into it and understand it is super important from the marketing side. So great. So then moving on to retention and the ROI. And again, customer acquisition costs so high. I can't say that enough. So it's more and more important to make sure that every single one of your customers not only makes a purchase, but stays and continues to make more and more purchases. So with that, I'll start with you, Gab. What are your best strategies to keeping customers coming back and buying more from you?
Personalization and segmentation is key. Right. First of all, you have to know who your customers are, right? Are they buying it for themselves? Are they buying it as a gift? Are they buying it for their dog? Right. And what kind of dog do they have? Like we work with WAG. They're like a pet treat brand. So what they do is they collect information from their reviewers. It's, dog breed, age, and activity level. And then they segment all of their messaging based off of the age and the dog breed that owner has, right? Because my mom has a 100-pound sleepy pit bull. He's a little different than, a very active little Chihuahua, right? So being able to really, again, like understand exactly who these people are, who's buying this, and then segmenting directly, I think is really helpful. And Megan, I'll answer your question in the chat really quickly. From my perspective, if your product is a one-time purchase, that doesn't mean that nobody will ever buy from you again, right? These people have friends, and hopefully they've liked that one piece of furniture, right? Like I've got a couch, it's very comfortable. Everybody comes over, I say that's a great couch. So, to be able to incentivize maybe with a referral, right? Or, some kind of a way that you can encourage new customers to come via those happy customers. So it might not necessarily be a repeat purchase for that one customer, but that one customer could then lead you to 2 or 4. So I think that's an important thing to touch on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the referral piece, shameless plug, coming soon with Okendo. Come ask us if you guys are interested in more. But I think it's so important, like Gab said, even if it's a one-time purchase, being able to have that person be loyal to your brand and to your product and refer to friends, or there's still always minor like cross-sell, upsell opportunities, something that goes with that piece of furniture. So maybe like a pillow that goes with the couch, or, something for the equipment. There's always something. It's important, even if you're one time, just to make sure you're keeping that consistent relationship with your customers. And then moving on, Megan, what's your take, in terms of the best ways to get customers to keep coming back?
Yeah. This one sounds kind of ridiculously simple, but know who they are. And that's where, here at retention.com, what we do is identify customers on site. And even if someone's purchased from you before, if they're not logged in, if they're on a new device, if they're not known to you, less than 10% of customers are actually known when they're visiting a website. So it can be someone that's purchased from you 5, 10, 15 times. And if they're on there and they're not logged into their account, if they haven't like set up something, they're not logged in their Shopify account, then they're net new. And that can be a jarring experience. So making sure that you're actually able to identify customers. I think account creation is a really fantastic thing. Like having some type of loyalty, some reason to come back, some type of program, and some way to actually know who that customer is when they land. And then also like email doesn't end post-purchase. For one, the emails post-purchase are much more important than most of the emails pre-purchase, right? Like what's that tracking one? What's upsells I can add to this product? What's that review that I can leave later? What's my coupon for coming back? Like what's my reason to re-engage? Megan, I love this question in the chat of like this one-time purchase. And I think Lindsay also touched on this, like a one-time purchase is never actually a one-time purchase. If it's a piece of furniture, someone's going to drop some coffee on there. It's usually me. So what's the stain remover? Like what's the new cushion covers that I can get? Like what's the warranty that I can buy? And like, is there a way to stay in touch with that customer when that warranty is going to expire? What's the end table that goes with that couch? What's the complimentary chair that you guys just put out that like now matches really well? Like what's the new stain cover? What about when my cat gets after like the edge of it and I want to reupholster it? Like who do you recommend? Equipment too, like those warranties are a really, really valuable thing to add on. And these are all these like post-purchase add-ons that for one, like can build that brand loyalty and affinity continuously. And those purchases, like they're not a short repeat funnel. They're not a 6-month repeat funnel, but like they are a repeat funnel. You will need a new couch in the future. I promise. Please don't keep the same couch for 15 years. It's a bad plan. But, keeping those customers and like keeping that email list and understanding and tracking those, like, yeah, it sounds like a lot of work and it is. But knowing when those customers come back to repeat, Black Friday, Cyber Monday strategies are a great time to hit people once a year with some messaging and conversation. Using tools within retention.com to warm back up your old email list and see which emails are actually still active, and then start like messaging and campaigning to those even once a year. That can really be extremely impactful. I see another question. The single product. That's always a fun one. Anyone have any here you want to jump in?
I can take a stab at that one. I think that even if you have a single product, if the market is big enough, I don't think it's I don't think you can like underestimate like how far you can take a single product. So I'll give you an example. I have my friend who's the founder of Jolie. It's like the shower head company. It's literally one product, and they have a couple of SKUs in terms of their filter heads in different colors. So that's really all there is to it. But the company's been growing, I think like they've been scaling like 5x a year or something like that. And then they've only been around for 3 years and is well into an 8-figure brand. And what's so cool about that is that it's all because you find an angle that works with a very specific type of customer. And if your market is truly big enough, you should ask the question of like, okay, I've captured a specific type of market who cares. I'm just going to go back to this hair example, who cares about maybe their hair not falling out. This is a very specific type of person. Then I have someone else who cares about the water being clean from my acne. And then I care about someone who just cares about cleaner water because the quality of the water is so bad. So this is just really going back to the basics of marketing hooks and analyzing the different types of customers that could be as part of your a part of your kind of customer personas, and just thinking about that, because with that company, they've been able to scale just one product with different color SKUs, and there's no sign of stopping just by thinking of different angles with different types of customers. And again, the question, the main kind of assumption here is that your product is one that everybody can use or a lot of people can use, and then it's just about finding and targeting those customers in different ways to really be able to scale that. I mean, even for us, we only came to market with 2 supplements for the first 2 years of our business. And we also had similar growth trajectory, but that's because we kept trying to figure out how do we speak to them in different ways. So this is really more about speaking to your customer in different ways and angles, as opposed to a product problem. It's very rarely a product problem if your product is good.
I mean, Squatty Potty, George Foreman Grill, they've created empires on one product.
And I think that's such
Yeah.
a great point, too, Nish, that you brought up in terms of like understanding why your customers. And I will also say just, with reviews and review attributes, you can ask that question. So something where you're like naturally asking them for their feedback, it could be like, why did you purchase this? And leave all of those things as options. And again, that's going to, just going back to the conversion conversation, help similar buyers with similar desires map and see the reviews of people like them. So again, if I care about my hair loss, I'll see that. But also because that probably helped them make their purchasing decision. Like they're not as weary, going back to that privacy concern of like them wanting to give you that information. They're not like, why are you asking me this? They know why you're asking it because it probably helped them convert as well. So that's like another great tactic of like how to get that information, how to learn, asking your customers over surveys, asking over reviews, all that, because that's going to, again, help with the retention side, the personalization. So all of this is kind of tying together. I love where we're getting. I think we're kind of building this long customer journey, and it all comes back to the same ideas. So with that, I'm going to start actually asking some individual questions to each of the panelists in their area of expertise. So Gab, I will start with you. And I think we've started a little bit talking about this with Google seller ratings and using the resources that you already have, but how can you maximize the impact of your reviews and surveys responses to drive more revenue for your brand?
Yeah, I don't know how many times in this webinar I'm going to say personalization, but personalization and segmentation, super key, in case you haven't heard. To be able to segment your users of somebody who likes the shower head because it's good for skincare, then you can target them with different messaging, right? Maybe you don't specifically sell other shower heads. Maybe there's a brand collaboration that can happen, or maybe there's a lifestyle that you build around the brand, which is people who are just doing this for better skin, right? So then you can take these responses and then use them in like upsell emails, cross-sell emails, and be able to, kind of share this proof across. We pretty at Okendo, we seamlessly integrate with your stack, right? We work with Attentive, with Klaviyo, with Loyalty Line, Smile, and Gorgeous, and Triple Whale, and retention, right? So we're able to kind of collect all of this information, right? Who is the customer? Why did they buy it? What are they doing? Why did they abandon their cart? And then make that data available in your Attentive flows or your Klaviyo flows, or be able to award loyalty points where they're due. So that way you can amplify your data, and just like streamline the work that you're doing as well.
Great. Perfect. And then Mia, so going back to customer retention, like we talked about, how can brands better understand their retention and the spend over time?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned customer segments earlier, but now the next question to that piece is, okay, I have these segments. What do I do with them? How do I understand them? Like, what do these segments mean for me? So another piece of that is cohorts. So Triple Whale does have a feature called cohorts that will help you benchmark your retention efforts and measure LTV. And I think that's super important. Whether you're creating segments with Triple Whale or elsewhere, it's really important to understand the individual data points of those segments. So I think it's really important to understand, your cohorts of total sales for those segments, LTV, retention rate, etc. So now you're getting really granular but easy to understand data about those specific groups of your customers or your prospects, so you can further understand, like we've been saying it a million times, who your customer really is, and so that you can provide that personalized experience at scale, right? So, and at the different stages to help retain them and keep them coming back. So that's my, biggest point is segmentation is so important, but so is understanding the data of each of those individual segments.
Absolutely. And then Megan, so, I think, again, we've talked about acquisition, conversion, retention. Let's get really deep into ROI. And Nish, we're going to ask you an ROI very specific question as well. But just Megan, like, what is your take on some of the best ways to maximize ROI in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all kind of rolling around those same trends, but like, don't just blast a message to everyone, don't waste your time, effort, energy on a marketing campaign that's not actually going to hit your customer. Also, I think like one step above all of this is like, you actually have to know these customers. You have to have a way in which to actually reach them. And that can be a social media campaign, that can be TikTok, that can be where they're landing. On email, that can either be through, using tools like retention.com to acquire email addresses. That can also be setting up organic flows to acquire email on site. So that's sign up for a newsletter, like a 20% off pop-up, the out of stock notifications, like the message me about new styles, like having different ways to find what customers are interested in engaging with, right? Like, are they sale oriented? Is that why they're taking that 20% off coupon? Are they very specifically focused on this product? Are you creating content that they directly want to engage with? Are you creating style guides and they're asking for those? So really understanding and being able to capture that customer, creating loyalty programs, having some reason for them to log in and actually have a personalized experience on your site. The more that you actually know your customer and you can leverage the non-paid channels in which to actually understand them, that means that your paid strategy is going to be much more tailored and specific, and is going to be a lot more effective.
I love that point. It's just, again, just harping on what we're saying. You have finite amount of resources, finite amount of cash. How can you leverage what you already have in a way, or, use the resources, use the tech stack that you already have to make it all make sense. I love that. And then Nish, for you, so how would you think of ROI in terms of increasing enterprise value? So profit, revenue, and investment in different channels, where do those stand in terms of importance in this economic environment?
So I just think that right now being profitable is just more important than ever before. And so the reason I think this is important is because there's a lot of ways to increase revenues. And I think that a lot of people were like, okay, how do I increase my revenues and how do I spend more to increase that kind of top line growth? I just think that everything we've talked about today is really important only if it is done profitably, and at least right now. And then I think there's a world again in the future where, maybe we are able to, or cash is available easily, and then just the macro environment isn't in a better state. But I just think that it's really important that all the things we talked about, whether it's figuring out, which types of customer we're going after, or what marketing channels we're using, and how much money we're spending to acquire them, it's just really important to do that in a profitable way. And thinking of that number as opposed to the top line growth number, that's been just really, really important. And so we're always thinking about increasing ROI, but I think the last word is we're thinking about doing it profitably. And that's been a really good place of growth to be in. And what's really cool is when you actually put that constraint on the brand, you're able to think much more critically of the things that you want to invest in. And as a result of that, you are able to really narrow down and grow the company efficiently. And you'd be surprised at how much growth you can get, even when you're thinking in that way. So, yeah.
Great. I love that. Exactly what you said, just doing it profitably. It's important. All this at the end of the day comes down to being profitable and maximizing, your ROI. And that's why we have been here today. Thank you guys so much. I think this has been an incredible conversation. With that said, I'm going to end on one final question that I think is top of mind. It's the season. If you haven't already thought about it, you're probably candidly behind. I think we're probably behind in talking about this topic. But knowing Black Friday, Cyber Monday is coming up, and that's a huge opportunity to get increased traffic to your site, more purchases than ever, retaining more customers than you ever could before. Let's end it with, as we are moving closer to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, what should be top of mind for brands to prepare? So Gab, I'll let you kick this one off.
Okay. All right. So I would say to start out, make sure you have a referral program in place, right? Like regardless of if you have a one-time product or an every other day product, you should be able to give your customers the power to support you and to effectively run a successful marketing channel for you. So if you allow them that opportunity, I think that will, like the multiple on that acquisition will be huge. If one person refers one or maybe two other people, That's a pretty powerful channel.
Absolutely. And Megan, what about you?
Start warming up your email list literally in the next 2 months. Find the people that bought from you last year and haven't engaged since. Find the people that have been engaging regularly, but not actually making a purchase. Find the people that are browsing your sale or opening those messages when you have like a big heavy discount. Start warming them up, start getting them like back into that engagement funnel. Find what messaging really appeals to those different cohorts. And then especially as you're getting into that last month, you'll have a really amazing warm list of people that like are going to be very high intent and that you can just message directly as soon as you send out those Black Friday, Cyber Monday promotions.
And then Mia, what about your tip for Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
Yeah, so start analyzing your marketing mix now to really put together a solid plan of where you're going to be investing for the holiday season. And if there is anything new that you want to experiment with, do it now so you can have data to understand whether it's worth scaling for the holiday season. You want to make all of your decisions data backed so you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall hoping it'll stick, right? Like Nish said, we're on the path to profitability. So that's where really crucial data comes into play. So experiment first now so you have that data to understand what'll work for holiday.
And then Nish, last but not least, but round it up from the brand side, what are you guys doing to prepare, or what should brands be thinking about for Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
I think just preparing well in advance, this is very, very important. I think that it becomes very overwhelming if you think about this even in Q4. So thinking about it now is super important. So for example, we just actually discussed our schedule for when we want to start the sales, how long we want to last them for, what is our merchandising strategy, what is the sales strategy, if through November, December, and even into like at very, very end of December. So just getting ahead of it is probably just like the most basic but really important advice. And we all joke about, oh my God, it's like, Christmas in July, but you actually have to think about it this early so that you're just more prepared for it. So it doesn't feel overwhelming when the time comes.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we are pretty much at time. Thank you so much to this incredible panelist of speakers. I know I had a great time chatting with you all today. I hope the audience, you got some really great tips for maximizing your ROI, becoming profitable, increasing, your acquisition channels and the effectiveness of each of them. With that, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, feel free to connect with everyone on LinkedIn, and we will be in touch with a recording within 24 hours. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great Black Friday, Cyber Monday coming soon. And we will talk to you all soon. Thanks so much.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Bye.
Guys.